Live from New Delhi, you're watching DDI News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Munmun Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to embark on an official visit to Poland and Ukraine from the 21st of August.
Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi will be undertaking an official visit to Poland this week on 21st and 22nd August at the invitation of Prime Minister His Excellency Donald Tusk.
Russia-Ukraine conflict escalates further. Moscow says Kiev has hit a third bridge in assault in the Kursk region. President Zelensky says Kiev is achieving its goals. Philippines detects first mpox case this year, yet to determine the strain. 33-year-old Filipino male has no travel history outside the country. Ahead of Paralympics 2024, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacts with Indian athletes, 84-member contingent to participate in the event. India's Ministry of External Affairs announced that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be in Ukraine on an official visit on the 23rd of August. The MEA termed the visit a landmark one.
Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi will undertake an official visit to Ukraine later this week on Friday, 23rd August, at the invitation of President of Ukraine, His Excellency Volodymyr Zelensky. This also is a landmark and historic visit, since this will be the first time that an Indian Prime Minister will be visiting Ukraine in more than 30 years since the diplomatic relations were established between our countries. This landmark visit, of course, takes place against the backdrop of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, which will also form part of discussions. As you are aware, India has consistently advocated for diplomacy and dialogue to reach a negotiated settlement.
Further in the press briefing, India's Ministry of External Affairs said that Prime Minister Modi will visit Poland on the 21st and the 22nd of August on the invitation of PM Donald Tusk.
Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi will be undertaking an official visit to Poland this week on 21st and 22nd August at the invitation of Prime Minister His Excellency Donald Tusk. This is a landmark visit as Prime Minister of India is visiting Poland after 45 years. The visit takes place as we also mark the 70th anniversary of the establishment of our diplomatic relations between India and Poland.
The MEA also said that Prime Minister will be accorded a ceremonial welcome and hold bilateral talks with his Polish counterpart.
Prime Minister Modi will be accorded a ceremonial welcome in addition to the talks with Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Prime Minister Modi will also call on President Andrzej Duda. Prime Minister Modi will also interact with members of the Indian community, select Polish business leaders and prominent Indologists. He will also visit memorials that commemorate the very special episodes of Jamnagar and Kolhapur in our shared history.
Ukraine has damaged a third key Russian bridge in the Kursk region. The bridges are a vital part of the region's road network, and their destruction or damage could complicate logistics for Moscow. Here's the latest on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukraine is continuing to make further gains in Russia's Kursk region 2 weeks since Kiev's forces launched a surprise attack across the border. Ukrainian air forces destroyed a third strategic bridge over the same river on Sunday. This comes on the back of attacks on 2 Russian bridges by Ukrainian forces. Ukraine destroyed a key bridge in the first attack and struck a second one nearby within a week. This leaves Moscow with few options to bring supplies across the water, with Ukraine trying to disrupt Moscow's combat operations in the area. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has spelled out the aim of the Kursk incursion for the first time. He said Ukraine aims to create a buffer zone in Russian territory to prevent further Russian attacks into Ukraine. This signals Ukraine's intention to hold on to the roughly 1,100 square kilometers of land that it's captured during the unprecedented incursion. Earlier, Mikhailo Podolyak, an advisor to President Zelensky, insisted Ukraine was not interested in occupying Russia but wanted to persuade Russia to enter negotiations. Moscow has called the incursion a major provocation and vowed to retaliate with a worthy response. As Ukraine moves further into western Russian territory, Russian forces are equally making gains in Ukraine's east and have claimed a string of villages in recent weeks. Russian Defense Ministry announced that its armed forces captured the town of Zalazne in Ukraine's Donetsk region. Meanwhile, Russian Ministry of Emergencies released videos on Monday showing civilians evacuated from the Kursk region arriving in various cities across southern Russia. Authorities in Russia's Kursk region have evacuated tens of thousands of people from border areas with Ukraine after Kiev's forces launched its Kursk invasion. Russian officials say nearly 200,000 people were being evacuated following the attack. Ukraine says it has seized more than 80 settlements over 1,150 square kilometers in Kursk since the 6th of August, in the biggest invasion of Russia since World War II. Ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's upcoming visit to Ukraine this week, India's External Affairs Ministry reiterated India's stand on the conflict.
India has maintained a very clear and consistent position that diplomacy and dialogue can resolve this conflict, and which can lead to enduring peace. So dialogue is absolutely essential. Lasting peace can only be achieved through options that are acceptable to both parties, and it can only be a negotiated settlement. On our part, India continues to engage with all stakeholders. Prime Minister Modi has had conversations with leaders of both Russia and Ukraine, as you know, and Prime Minister had also visited Russia recently. India is willing to provide all possible support and contribution required to help find peaceful solutions to this complex issue.
With both sides continuing their military offensives against each other, it remains to be seen if the gap can be narrowed between the two sides through any peace initiative. Bureau Report, DD India. And DD India's Dasha Cherneshowana joins us live from Moscow for more. Dasha, in response to Kiev's Kursk incursion, Russian troops have made some significant gains to the northwest of Ukraine's Donetsk region. How is the battle shaping up on ground?
Well, according to the statements coming from Russia's Ministry of Defense, the incursion of Russia's Kursk region has not prevented the advances of the Russian military, the Russian armed forces in the area of the so-called special military operation. We understand from the president, who has been speaking to the Russian population, that Russia has started to advance even faster as this incursion has been ongoing. The MOD has confirmed the liberation, as they describe it, of the village of Artyomova. This is in Donbass, and we understand that this is one of the major places of the Donetsk agglomeration. It is located between the towns of New York and Toretsk, where the heavy fighting has been going on for weeks now. We also understand that this fighting is ongoing with the territories that are under the Russian control coming under the shelling from the Ukrainian side. A pregnant woman was killed, and at least 10 people, including 2 children, were injured in the attacks of the Ukrainian armed forces on the city of Donetsk, according to the local authorities. So it is the situation that is developing. The front line is moving, but Russia insists that it is making gains, and because of those gains, officials here in Russia say Ukraine has embarked on this provocation and started the incursion of Kursk region.
Also, Dasha, Ukrainian president says that with the Kursk incursion, Ukraine aims to create a buffer zone inside the Russian territory. And that's a signal that Ukraine intends to hold on to the land that it's captured. Is Russia planning a counteroffensive there?
Well, to this moment, the goal of the Russian military has been to squeeze out the Ukrainian troops from the Russian sovereign territory, that is from the Kursk region. We understand that this region of Belgorod has also been under the Ukrainian attacks for months now. So the idea of Russian armed forces actually for months now has been to create the buffer zone in Ukraine to protect those border areas in Russia against the Ukrainian shelling. Now, the understanding is that more villages have been closed in Russia's Belgorod region in order to allow the military more room for maneuver and to prevent the civilian casualties because of the undergoing shelling from the Ukrainian side. Now, Russia is saying that they are beefing up their military presence in the border regions, and they are striking the Ukrainian military both on the Russian territory and on the Ukrainian territory, from where they are sending reinforcements to the Ukrainian armed forces. However, it's interesting now, there is no foreseeable future for the upcoming negotiations. If a couple of weeks ago we have been talking about the prospects for the talks and an increased conversation about the possibility of ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, now the Russian officials say this incursion has put any sort of negotiations with Ukraine on long pause.
We'll leave it at that. Dasha Chernishova reporting from Moscow. We now bring you a report on the outbreak of mpox, or monkeypox, which has spread from Africa to other parts of the world. Philippines has reported the first case of mpox. India, however, is on alert and is ready to deal with any eventuality, though there has been no case so far.
Just when Africa is battling mpox, the Philippines detected a new case of mpox virus in the country. This is the first since December last year. 33-year-old Filipino male had no travel history outside the Philippines, according to the country's Department of Health. One case of mpox virus has been detected in Pakistan of the Clade 2 variety. Clade 1b has triggered global concern because it seems to spread more easily through routine close contact. A case of the variant was confirmed last week in Sweden and linked to a growing outbreak in Africa, the first sign of its spread outside the continent. The WHO last week declared the mpox surge a public health emergency of international concern, its highest alert level.
There are some adults who prefer to go to churches to get prayed for instead of visiting health facilities. By the time they arrive at hospitals, the mpox virus is at an advanced stage. That's the reason why we have recorded many deaths.
Let's now briefly understand what mpox is, its causes and symptoms. Mpox is caused by the monkeypox virus. It belongs to the same group of viruses as smallpox, but is said to be much less harmful. There are two main types of mpox, Clade 1 and Clade 2. A previous mpox public health emergency was declared in 2022. It is most common in remote villages in the tropical rainforests of Africa. While 96% of mpox cases are in DR Congo, the disease has spread to many neighboring countries such as Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda and Uganda. Symptoms: fever, headaches, swelling, back pain and muscle ache. Infection usually clears up on its own and lasts between 14 and 21 days. Mpox spreads from one person to another person through close contact with someone who is infected. Virus can enter the body through broken skin, the respiratory tract, or through the eyes, nose, or mouth. It can also be spread through touching objects such as bedding, clothing, and towels, and with close contact with infected animals such as monkeys, rats. India has not reported any mpox cases at this time. The government is taking comprehensive precautions to ensure public safety. Enhanced surveillance and monitoring are in place at key international entry points and healthcare infrastructure, including 3 model hospitals and an isolation ward in Delhi, is ready to handle any potential cases. The National Center for Disease Control has completed its preparations, and there are 32 ICMR labs across the country equipped with mpox testing. Importantly, there is no connection between mpox and COVID-19. And individuals vaccinated against smallpox are considered at lower risk. Bureau Report, DD India.
Time for us to take a breather on DD India News Hour. Coming up after that, the United States Democratic Party is holding its Democratic National Convention in Chicago to formally nominate Kamala Harris as the Democrat candidate for the U.S. presidential polls. Tensions escalate once again in South China Sea as China's Coast Guard claims a Philippines vessel deliberately collided with a Chinese vessel. Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munman Bhattacharya. Top US diplomat Antony Blinken warned on Monday that the latest push for a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal was probably the best and possibly the last opportunity. Blinken met with Israeli President Isaac Herzog in Tel Aviv and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu in Jerusalem. The Israeli Prime Minister described his meeting with Blinken as positive. Blinken will head to Cairo on Tuesday, where ceasefire talks are expected to resume this week.
As part of Washington's renewed diplomatic push for a Gaza truce, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken held talks with Israel's top leadership on Monday. Blinken met with Israeli President Isaac Herzog in Tel Aviv and said he was back in Israel to get this agreement to the line and ultimately over the line. Blinken urged Israel and Hamas not to derail negotiations that he said may be a last opportunity to secure a truce.
This is a decisive moment, probably the best, maybe the last opportunity to get the hostages home, to get a ceasefire, and to put everyone on a better path to enduring peace and security.
The Israeli side blamed Hamas for not moving forward to get the ceasefire deal done.
At the bottom line of it, people have to understand it starts with the refusal of Hamas to move forward. We are simply still very hopeful that we can move forward in the negotiations that are held by the mediators.
Blinken later met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem. Netanyahu's office in a statement said that three-hour meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was positive and conducted in a good spirit. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson said on Monday that it supports efforts regarding the ceasefire. The Iranian foreign ministry also said that potential ceasefire in Gaza has nothing to do with Iran's retaliation for killing of Hamas military wing chief.
We are not looking for intensification of insecurity in the region. We support efforts with good intentions regarding the ceasefire.
Blinken is due to travel on Tuesday to Cairo, where ceasefire talks are expected to resume this week. The talks, which are mediated by Egypt, Qatar and the United States, will come following a two-day meeting in Doha last week that was focused on bridging proposals introduced by Washington. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
DD India's Sarah Coates now joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, what's the latest on the ceasefire talks?
Hello there. Well, Mr. Blinken is right now meeting with Israel's Defence Minister Yoav Gallant at the IDF headquarters, the Kiryat, right here in Tel Aviv, after that very long three-hour meeting with the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem. Now, this is really being seen as a last-ditch attempt to try and get this ceasefire deal over the line after months and months of failed negotiations. But certainly there is a lot of hope, not a lot of optimism. Still these same sticking points rearing their heads. One of those is the control over the Philadelphia corridor. That is that very narrow strip of land that separates Egypt and the Gaza Strip. Israel insists that it must have full security control over the corridor, saying that this is to prevent weapons smuggling into Gaza, while Hamas has come out to say that this is something that wasn't actually in that proposal and that it is something that it rejects. So certainly we can expect a lot of diplomacy over these next few days, with Israel actually coming out over the last few hours to say that it will be sending its top-tier negotiating team to Cairo when these ceasefire talks start back up again. But once again, a lot of hope, not a lot of optimism, but in saying that, these family members of the 115 Israeli hostages that do remain in the Gaza Strip, they are still holding on to a sliver of hope. They are demanding that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and also this negotiating team, that they go there and they come back with a deal.
So a lot of diplomacy in the days ahead, like you said, but you're also seeing that Tel Aviv is on high alert after yesterday's bombing. Tell us more.
Certainly, this has already been claimed by Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas. It happened pretty late last night in what would normally be a fairly busy area here in Tel Aviv. An extremely loud boom with the Shin Bet and Israeli police now saying that this was a man who came in from the West Bank illegally. He was in his 50s. They found explosives strapped to him. So it looks like he's detonated himself. He actually wounded a person when this bomb went off who was passing by this man, with authorities now calling on people that if they see anything suspicious to report it to police immediately. Now, we do have a statement from Hamas. It came out to say that the brigades confirm that martyrdom operations inside the occupied territories will return to the forefront as long as the occupation massacres, the displacement of civilians and the policy of assassinations continues. So certainly very, very concerning given this happened in a residential area, as I said, a normally very busy area with people being told to be very alert.
We'll leave it at that. Sarah Coates reporting from Tel Aviv. The United States Democratic Party is holding a Democratic National Convention in Chicago. U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are attending the Democratic National Convention. Biden, forced by his allies to abandon his re-election bid a month ago, will be in the spotlight on the opening night of the Democratic National Convention on Monday, aware that his party has swiftly moved on without him. Hollywood stars are also attending the 4-day Democratic National Convention 2024 in Chicago. The convention that will formally nominate Kamala Harris for U.S. President will witness the presence of stars including Julia Louis-Dreyfus, John Legend, Billy Porter and Mindy Kaling. DD India's Nick Harper joins us live from Washington, D.C. for more. Nick, since Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have already been nominated, what can we really expect from this year's Democratic National Convention?
Well, this will be an opportunity for them to officially accept the nomination, which will take place later this week. But realistically, this is a made-for-TV event. It happens during prime time, during evening hours, in the hope that voters right across the country will be able to tune in. So we'll hear headline speeches from a whole host of different people. Kamala Harris herself will speak at the end of the week on Thursday night. The night before, on Wednesday, it'll be her vice presidential pick, Tim Walz. On Tuesday, we'll hear from former President Barack Obama, and tonight it'll be President Biden. A very different speech for him just a few weeks ago when he was presumed to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. He was in line to give the headline speech at the end of the week. Instead, he's sidelined this evening to really kick things off and pass the torch on to Kamala Harris. For her, this will really also be an opportunity not just to have the Democratic Party rally behind her, but give her an opportunity to outline some potential policies. So far, there's been plenty of enthusiasm in the party, but we haven't seen much in the way of concrete policies from her. She gave her first policy-centred speech on Friday. It revolved around the economy. There were some ideas in that, including trying to reduce the cost at grocery stores for shoppers, trying to build more houses across the country. But we haven't heard a great deal from her. So that'll be the opportunity for her this week to sell herself to the country and outline her vision for America if she were to become president.
Also, Nick, with Harris leading Trump in polls for some weeks now, particularly among women voters in the battleground states, are Democrats more confident these days than they were, say, a month back?
Well, I think they are. We've seen an incredible turnaround for the Democratic Party. There was this despair when Joe Biden was still topping the ticket, a real fear that the Democrats were heading towards an election that they would lose to Donald Trump. And yet now, with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket, there has been enthusiasm, confidence, a real belief that the Democrats can win in November's election. And much of that is playing out in the polls. A recent poll showed that she is now tied or leading Donald Trump in 6 of the 7 swing states. And I think that's also why Donald Trump himself is out on the campaign trail this week, hitting swing states, trying to claw back some of the headlines from the Democrats. With their convention in Chicago, he'll be hitting rallies in various swing states, really to try and tell voters that they should be voting for him and not Kamala Harris come November.
Nick Harper reporting from Washington, D.C. South China Sea, the center of territorial tussles between China, the Philippines and other countries, saw tensions escalate once again as China's Coast Guard said a Philippines vessel ignored its repeated warnings and deliberately collided with a Chinese vessel in an unprofessional and dangerous manner.
With every passing day, South China Sea is becoming a dangerous flashpoint. And this is after Beijing's claims about Taiwan and Philippines. China's foreign ministry once again criticized actions taken by the Philippines Coast Guard on Monday, blaming them for a collision with a Chinese Coast Guard vessel.
On August 19, 2 Philippine maritime police vessels intruded into the maritime territory near China's Jianbin Reef of our Nansha Islands without the permission of the Chinese government. Despite warnings from the Chinese maritime police vessels, they intentionally rammed the on-site law enforcement vessels of the Chinese maritime police in a dangerous manner.
And just after this came a reaction from Philippines.
This morning, Philippine Coast Guard vessels BRP Bagakay, MRRV 4410, and BRP Cape Enhanyo, MRRV 4411, encountered unlawful and aggressive maneuvers from Chinese Coast Guard vessels while en route to Patag and Lawak Islands in the West Philippine Sea.
This comes in the backdrop of China and Vietnam inking 14 documents spanning cross-border railways to crocodile exports on Monday, after Chinese President Xi Jinping met with Vietnam's President Tho Lam in Beijing. China and the Philippines reached a provisional agreement in July after repeated altercations. China has been sharply criticized by Western nations for aggression in blocking Philippine efforts to resupply troops abroad, a Navy ship it intentionally grounded 25 years ago. Beijing claims almost all of the South China Sea as its sovereign territory, rejecting a 2016 ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague that Beijing's expansive claims had no basis under international law. These are portions of the strategic waterway where trade worth $3 trillion passes annually, and it is believed to be rich in oil and natural gas, as well as fish stocks. Bureau Report, DD India.
Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world. Posidonia oceanica, known as lungs of the Mediterranean, is fighting for survival due to climate change, rising sea temperatures, alien species invasion and direct human activities near the coasts. This unique seagrass is endemic to the Mediterranean and plays a vital role in maintaining marine health and combating climate change. A gamer with a penchant for retro consoles, Ibrahim Al Nasser from Saudi Arabia, has connected more than 400 of them to a single television in his 9 meters by 5 meters gaming room, creating a world record. His setup showcases a wide range of consoles from the 1980s to 1990s, all connected in one room. Newspapers in France paid tribute on Monday morning to late French star Alain Delon, who died on Sunday at the age of 88. He was already under legal protection over concerns over his health and well-being. Delon shot to fame in 2 films by Italian director Luchino Visconti, Rocco and His Brothers in 1960 and The Leopard in 1963. India's Minister of State for External Affairs, Pabitra Margarita, engaged with lawmakers of Guatemala at a dinner hosted by India's ambassador to Guatemala, Dr. Manoj Kumar Mohapatra, at India House in Guatemala. They discussed strengthening India-Guatemala bilateral relations and parliamentary cooperation, fostering deeper ties. Time for a breather on DD India News Hour. Coming up after that, an analysis on the Russia-Ukraine battle as it stands today and prospects of peace, if any. Doctors continue to protest across India following the rape and murder of a medical student in India's West Bengal. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. A recap now of the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to embark on an official visit to Poland and Ukraine from the 21st of August. Russia-Ukraine conflict escalates further. Moscow says Kiev has hit a third bridge in assault in the Kursk region. President Zelensky says Kiev is achieving its goals. Philippines detects first mpox case this year, yet to determine the strain. 33-year-old Filipino male has no travel history outside the country. And to discuss the battle between Russia and Ukraine, particularly in the Kursk region, the latest Kursk incursion by Ukraine, and that was started on the 6th of August, and prospects of peace, if any. We are being joined by Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. He is former Director General Infantry. Such a pleasure to have you on DD India. How do you look at the battle as it stands as of now? General Kulkarni, also, is Ukraine ready for a resolution? Both sides, in fact, because both sides seem to have paid a heavy price for the conflict over the last 2.5 years. But neither side seem to be ready to make big moves for peace. Some say they may be tired but not exhausted. One of the conditions perhaps for peace negotiations.
Thank you very much. I think you are absolutely right. Probably Ukraine is looking for a negotiation. And that was one of the reasons why this Kursk offensive can be seen in that context. Because even much that Ukraine has been supplied with weapons of like HIMARS and all to be able to counter the Russian offensive. But despite that, of course, Russia also feels that if it hadn't been for the kind of equipment that Ukraine has got, this offensive would have possibly gone in, as Russians seem to have lost about 1,000 square kilometers for the first time after Second World War. And the Ukrainians are not seeing that as a great victory, but forcing the Russians for a negotiation. And that probably seems that there is possibly some kind of work going on, where the Russians also are looking for a ceasefire, which is a negotiable kind of a thing, which the Russians always wanted it from Ukraine, but Russians believe that Ukraine was being held and being pushed into this offensive against Russia. So I see it in that context that though the Ukrainians have succeeded in going about gaining about 1,000 square kilometers of the Russian territory in the Kursk and the way they've gone about it, but yes, that is not, the Ukrainians don't see it as a big victory as much as they seem to feel they may be able to force Russians into negotiations and some whatever relief that they might get in the Donbass region. It is in that context I see this offensive of the Ukrainians and Russia.
Yeah. Also, General Kulkarni, we heard from the Ministry of External Affairs today, and it said that The ongoing conflict is going to be discussed during Prime Minister's upcoming visit to Ukraine, and it also said that India has maintained the stand that diplomacy and dialogue is the only way forward for lasting peace. It referred to how India had participated in the Switzerland peace talks, and that going forward it wants both sides to sit across the table and talk peace, something which we had not seen in the Switzerland peace talks. So do you think that there is an opportunity here for the international community to once again come together to find some sort of prospect for peace?
See, India has always believed, like what the Prime Minister always said, that this isn't an era of war, and you can't have peace, with the gun pointing to your head. So it is, all these kind of things are definitely, diplomacy has to be there. Dialogue and diplomacy alone can succeed in bringing in peace in this region. India has always had excellent relations with Ukraine and also with Russia. There is no denying the fact. This, of course, is a very historic visit because I think almost after 30 years that the Indian Prime Minister would be visiting Ukraine, and at a time when there have been quite a few of Ukrainian visits also to India, their foreign ministers, the deputy ministers coming in. It looks like that, yes, they feel that since India has had very good relations with Ukraine, we had about 18,000 students studying there, all of them with Op Ganga, we were able to get back to India, all with the support of Ukraine, Poland, Russia, all of it. So we have excellent relations, and that is why the Prime Minister's visit in consonant with the visit to Poland, which is again historic, almost after 40 years there, 30 years here, is indicative that yes, there is something. I wouldn't say that the Prime Minister's visit is primarily to be able to do, but why not? Since he maintains very good relations with Mr. Zelensky, he's been meeting Mr. Zelensky on and off on many international forums, and he also has a lot of hope. He also feels that, yes, India's Prime Minister has excellent relations with Mr. Putin. If something worthwhile could come through, because Ukraine also seems to feel that enough is enough now, if something worthwhile. And as I said, even the offensive, probably Ukraine sees it as an excellent way to look forward for negotiating with Russia. Russia also seems to feel that, yeah, why not? They've always been saying if they are not, if Ukraine is not influenced by the West, negotiations with Ukraine are always welcome. In that context, yes, but we should hope that it is only with that in view that to be able to solve. But definitely, at a time like this, when there's a war on since February 2022, it's been a long time. There's a war over 906 odd days it's been on. If the Prime Minister can help and can facilitate, can carry, because he's met Mr. Putin, he's met Mr. Zelensky, and in that context, now that he's going to be visiting Ukraine, meeting Mr. Zelensky at his invitation on the 23rd of August, I look forward, if things can be peaceful, if Russia and Ukraine can sort of come to peace on the negotiating table, I think it will be a huge difference that will make to the world, because the world is also now undergoing, now the economic crisis can be seen all over the world, be it in oil, be it in gas, be it in inflation, and of course the relations, unnecessarily polarization of the world takes place. So in that context, I think our Prime Minister's visit, when both the leaders, Mr. Zelensky, as also Mr. Putin, they hold him at very high esteem, and he has good relations with both. India has excellent relations with Ukraine before this, and even now, the kind of 135 tons of humanitarian assistance that we've given to Ukraine. After, despite all those so many students come back, I understand there are yet another about 1,000 students who have gone back to Ukraine to continue with their studies, is indicative that there's a lot of goodwill that exists between Ukraine and India, and I'm quite hopeful that something worthwhile will come. Oh, maybe after the visit, we will really get to know what has happened after the visit of the Prime Minister to Ukraine, which is historic by all means, because it's after 30 years the diplomatic relations established between Ukraine and India that the Prime Minister of India will be visiting, and at a time when Ukraine and Russia are at war.
We've heard from the Prime Minister before on how this is not the era of war and solutions cannot be found in the battlefield. Having said that, what role could US play going forward? Could Moscow and Kiev want to see the outcome of the US elections, a major variable shaping war and peace in Ukraine, before they seal a peace deal, if at all?
See, the Republicans have always believed And Mr. Trump has always believed, and he said it very clearly, that the NATO countries must give 2% of the GDP contributing towards the NATO military expenditure, because he was very, very clear that they cannot possibly be, living off what the United States does and fire their guns from the U.S. shoulders. In that context, yes, the Ukrainians, though, should the Republicans come to power, and with Mr. Trump as president, he is going to be telling Zelensky no more. The Republicans also have reasonably good relations with Russia, with, of course, the Democrats all out to stand for Zelensky, irrespective of whatever happens. And we've seen it for over now 906 days, the kind of support that has been given to Ukraine. But yes, if there's a change in USA, and if Mr. Trump comes back, probably I would see that the war will end. And the only way it can end, as I again see, it would be West Ukraine and East Ukraine, the whole country being divided. But there would peace prevail, as it did after the Second World War, when Germany was divided into West Germany and East Germany, and something to that effect. But yes, Ukraine is on a, they would be quite happy to have the Democrats, because the Republican, and especially Mr. Trump, has very clearly said that this kind of aid which is flowing to Ukraine and at the cost of the American economy is not acceptable to the Republicans. So in that context, I think, yes, these elections are very important for Ukraine.
General Kulkarni, what do you make at the same time of Europe's internal divisions on how to deal with the Russian question? Because two historically neutral countries, Finland and Sweden, have joined NATO amid their growing sense of threat from Russia. Also, two NATO members, Hungary and Turkey, have sought to pursue their own paths to dealing with the Ukraine war. And many European parties on both left and right are in favor of a compromise with Russia.
See, definitely, with Finland, Sweden, the number of NATO countries turned 30 number. So there is that little pressure, and they have been staying neutral. With Turkey, of course, the grain deal which came along with Russia was a great, I would say, a boon to most of the countries, especially Africa. Well, the grain deal has now got abrogated. But notwithstanding that, I think there is a little bit of, Turkey is looking at it now. Some kind of rumors come from Turkey that they are also looking at wanting to give away the S-400, because there has been pressure on Turkey for having supported the Russians and having got that, and they don't seem now very comfortable with it. So there is a lot of internal this thing, because countries are there which feel that, yes, the war must end. There are countries which are in support of Russia slowly and steadily, because the economy, all said and done, the economies are being badly affected. We can't carry on supporting a war in Ukraine with billions and billions of dollars and going nowhere. Because except for this small little Kursk offensive, wherein the Ukrainians have managed about 1,000 square kilometers, it's been on for so many, almost 900 plus days. And what has it been? It has been total ruin for the, for Ukraine, and especially the eastern Ukraine, almost finished. And with that in mind, I think slowly and steadily, even amongst the Europeans, there is a little bit of pressure on Ukraine to end the war, because boots on ground for Ukraine seem a little difficult, though the military arsenal is definitely being provided, but boots on ground is difficult, and the Russians are able to keep the offensive going, which again, with the kind of polarization, you see the Chinese, the Iranians, the Russians, all getting on one side, the Americans wanting to push as much as they can, with Israel also now, with Hamas getting into a little more broil with Iranians and the Israeli kind of tensions that are building up. So obviously, everybody wants that the war must end, and therefore, in that context, as I see, there is polarization even amongst the European Union, and definitely with countries like Turkey and Finland, Sweden, were neighbors and have been at very peace with Russia, would much want that there is peace prevailing over there.
Right. Thank you, General Kulkarni, for joining us and sharing your views on the ongoing battle between Russia and Ukraine, and whether peace really stands a chance in the weeks to come. Let's move on now. Protests across India continued unabated even after the Supreme Court's intervention in the rape and murder case of a medical student in West Bengal. In Kolkata, lawyers joined doctors in protests while the CBI received court approval to conduct a polygraph test on the prime suspect. The unrest has intensified pressure on Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's government, and the Supreme Court will hear the matter on Tuesday.
Protests continue across India, showing no signs of abating, even after the Supreme Court intervened to address the case involving the rape and murder of a medical student in India's West Bengal. Lawyers took to the streets in Kolkata on Monday in solidarity with the protesting doctors. The Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, is probing the RG Kar Medical College and Hospital rape murder case. CBI received court's approval on Monday to conduct a polygraph test on Sanjay Roy, the prime suspect. The large-scale protests have put significant pressure on the state government led by Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, who is responsible for ensuring the safety of women in the state. Meanwhile, the Council for the Victim's Family has made an explosive revelation, alleging that the Chief Minister has been handling such cases through financial means.
The role of the Chief Minister in the state of West Bengal is very condemnable role. Wherever there is a rape, she wants to immediately get into the contact of the victim family, pay them money and then say that everything is over. Unfortunately, she has fixed up rate card for the rape victims. Her attempt is to purchase the witnesses.
The opposition has criticized the state government.
Mamata Banerjee has become Mamata the destroyer. By her misdeeds, she has destroyed the dignity of a woman, a doctor who was serving the society. She is the destroyer of the rule of law. She is the destroyer of evidence in this heinous crime.
Days after the Calcutta High Court, expressing displeasure over the handling of the case, transferred the investigation to the CBI, the Supreme Court has taken suo motu cognizance of the August 9th incident. A three-judge bench, presided over by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud, will hear the matter on Tuesday. Bureau Report, DD India.
Time for us to take a breather on the DD India News Hour. Coming up after that, Prime Minister Narendra Modi praises India's 84-member Paralympic team, celebrating their resilience as they leave for the Paris 2024 Games. And Raksha Bandhan celebrations take place across India, honouring bonds and traditions. Also, a rare blue supermoon illuminated the sky in the night, dazzling Jakarta, Seoul and Sydney with its extraordinary luminous beauty. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munman Bhattacharya. Ahead of the third India-Japan 2+2 Foreign and Defence Ministerial meeting, Japanese Foreign Minister Yoko Kamikawa and Defence Minister Muniro Kihara met with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi on Monday. The leaders reviewed the progress in India-Japan defence and security ties and reaffirmed the important role of their partnership in promoting peace, stability and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. Nepal's new Foreign Minister Arzu Rana Deoba, who is on a 5-day official visit to India, met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday, sharing pictures of their meeting on the microblogging site X. PM Modi highlighted the close civilizational ties and the progressive multifaceted partnership between India and Nepal. He expressed optimism about maintaining momentum in their development partnership. Liberia's Vice President Jeremiah Kopan Kung arrived in New Delhi on Monday for the 19th CII India-Africa Business Conclave. The three-day event, running from the 20th to 22nd of August, provides a platform for African countries and India to exchange business ideas and forge new partnerships. Since its inception, the conclave has become one of the largest gatherings of senior ministers, policymakers and business leaders from both Africa and India, spanning various countries. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman chaired a meeting in New Delhi on Monday. The meeting reviewed the performance of public sector banks on their financial parameters, deposit mobilization, digital payments and cybersecurity framework, in addition to access to credit under financial inclusion and other emerging issues related to the PSBs. To boost its global pharmaceutical standing, the Indian Pharma Kapea Commission hosted an international delegation of policymakers and drug regulators from 15 countries. The delegation's visit, part of the inaugural Policymakers Forum at New Delhi's Dr. Ambedkar International Centre, featured the launch of new digital platforms for pharmacopoeia and drug safety. India's Minister for Health and Family Welfare, JP Nadda, inaugurated the event, highlighting the country's commitment to enhancing the Indian pharmacopoeia's global recognition. You're watching DDI India News Hour. Time now for all the sports action. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with the Indian contingent for Paris Paralympics 2024 virtually on Monday. During the interaction, he lavished praise and congratulated the para-athletes going into the event. PM Modi added that India's athletes have conquered the challenges of the society. The Paralympic Games are scheduled to be held from the 28th of August to the 8th of September in Paris. India is sending an 84-member contingent to the biggest sporting extravaganza, and it is India's largest ever contingent being sent to the Paralympic Games.
आपकी सफलता बताती है कि आप विपरीत हवाओं का ही नहीं, विपरीत तूफानों का मुकाबला करने का मादा रखते हैं। आपने समाज की स्थापित मान्यताओं को हराया है, आपने शरीर की चुनौतियों को हराया है। इसलिए सफलता के मंत्र भी आप ही हैं, सफलता के उदाहरण भी आप स्वयं हैं और सफलता के प्रमाण भी आप ही हैं।
India's top singles player Sumit Nagal bowed out of the Winston-Salem Open, an ATP 250 event, after a straight-set defeat against Borna Coric in the first round. Nagal lost 4-6, 2-6 to the Croatian player in 1 hour and 10 minutes. Nagal converted the only break point he got in the contest while dropping his serve 4 times. In the doubles draw, former junior national champion Dakshineshwar Suresh will feature along with British partner Luca Pau. In India, Raksha Bandhan, celebrated with zest across the nation, unites people from all walks of life. At Rashtrapati Bhavan, President Draupadi Murmu joyfully celebrated with students, while Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Defence Minister Rajnath Singh were also honoured with colourful Rakhis by school children. Rakhi symbolises the enduring bond between brothers and sisters.
India is a land of festivals. From Holi to Dussehra, to Diwali, to Eid, to Christmas, all are celebrated with religious fervour and enthusiasm. Monday witnessed a special bond between brothers and sisters. This festival of Raksha Bandhan is special and is celebrated across the country, where sisters tie colourful Rakhis to their brothers and pray for their prosperity, health and well-being. In return, brothers pledge to protect and support their sisters and give them gifts. The festival is not just limited to citizens. The President, PM, Speaker of Lower House of Parliament and the Cabinet Ministers all join and celebrate the festival. Raksha Bandhan was celebrated at Rashtrapati Bhavan, the official residence of the President of India in New Delhi, where the country's first citizen Draupadi Murmu celebrated the festival with over 600 school students and teachers. Students dressed in their traditional attire presented many gifts to the President. They were thrilled to meet the President.
बहुत अच्छा लगा मैम की बातें सुनकर, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। जब मैम ने कहा था कि बच्चे ही फ्यूचर है, तो मेरे दिल में बहुत होप जागी कि हम कुछ बड़ा कर सकते हैं।
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi celebrated Raksha Bandhan with the school girls. The video shows schoolgirls tying the Rakhi to PM Modi on the festival of Raksha Bandhan. PM also interacted with the children. School students tied Rakhi to India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh as well. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal celebrated Rakhi with the Delhi-based women refugees from Pakistan who just got citizenship under CAA. The Citizenship Amendment Act seeks to fast-track the process of granting Indian citizenship to Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, Parsis and Christians who migrated to India from Bangladesh, Afghanistan and Pakistan due to religious persecution. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla celebrated Raksha Bandhan in his parliamentary constituency of Kota Bundi with COVID-affected families. He celebrated Rakhi with sisters and daughters who lost their brothers. Girls and women in Jammu and Kashmir also celebrated the festival by tying the sacred threads on the wrists of CRPF jawans guarding India's borders. In Akola, in western Indian state of Maharashtra, specially abled children of Muktangan school in Raigad district made colourful and attractive Rakhis. Students of a school in Washim expressed their gratitude by tying Rakhi to the trees, giving the message of environmental protection. In Chennai, Tamil Nadu, school children observed Raksha Bandhan in a very special way. They promised to keep the trees safe and fastened Rakhi to them. In Assam too, Raksha Bandhan is celebrated with love and gaiety across the state. Many women and youth in the state wished the Chief Minister on Raksha Bandhan on this day. Rakhi represents the purity of the relationship between brother and sister, and every knot of Rakhi is a symbol of the strength of the bond. Bureau Report, DD India.
Combination of a supermoon and a blue moon is a rare phenomena. A supermoon occurs when the moon is at its closest point to Earth in its orbit, making it appear significantly larger and brighter in the night sky. And this rare blue supermoon, the first for the year, lit up the skies on Monday evening in various parts of the world, including Indonesian capital Jakarta. The term blue moon does not refer to the color of the moon, but to its occurrence. A blue moon does not refer to its color, but when there are two full moons in 1 month. While in South Korea, a rare astronomical event was observed in Seoul, where a supermoon and a blue moon coincided. This event marks the first of 4 consecutive supermoons expected this year, according to NASA. And rare Sturgeon blue supermoon also rose over the iconic Sydney Opera House on Monday, marking the first supermoon of the year. That's it then in this edition of DD India News Hour. Do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, so scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Prasar Bharati from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.